What is up, you guys? It is Zach coming at you with another video. Now, Life is Strange Double Exposure is coming out in a few months, and I know a lot of people on this channel have said in the poll that I posted last week, a majority of the people who watch my channel have never played a Life is Strange game. So, given that Life is Strange Double Exposure stars the main character from the first game, I figured I would do this video kinda diving into her story. But you are also able to play all of the Life is Strange games on the Nintendo Switch. So, if you want to play these games for yourself and experience the stories, or if you watch this video and want to dive into the games to learn a little bit more, then you can play all of the games on the Nintendo Switch. Now, Life is Strange is 1 Before the Storm and True Colors are available digitally and physically on the Nintendo Switch. But Life is Strange 2 is only available digitally on the Nintendo Switch, but you're able to get it physically on other platforms. We're going to be diving into all of these games and how Max's life is kind of entangled in all of them. Keep in mind, because we're focusing on Max, I'm not going to really dive into the specific details on all of these games. Specifically, True Colors and Life is Strange 2 will only have a little bit talked about in depth. So these games you will not really be spoiled on, but huge spoiler alert for the original Life is Strange, as I'll include Before the Storm for spoilers as well. So, without any further ado, let's dive on into Max's story in Life is Strange. Starting with Max Caulfield's latest playable appearance before Life is Strange Double Exposure, Life is Strange Farewell is a short, 1-episode long bonus chapter in the prequel expansion to the original Life is Strange game titled Life is Strange Before the Storm. In this chapter, we take control of a then 13-year-old Max Caulfield as she is visiting her best friend Chloe Price as she has to tell her some horrible news. Max would soon be moving to the city of Seattle and would be leaving her friend Chloe behind. Max and Chloe have been friends for many years, so Max wasn't sure how to tell Chloe, and she is very nervous about breaking her friend's heart. This episode of Max's life doesn't have too much eventful stuff going on throughout it, just Max and Chloe kinda hanging out, blowing up some dolls, playing pirates, and looking through an old times capsule that they had buried long ago. Then reaches the point where you could choose to tell Chloe about the fact that you're moving, or you can choose to keep it to yourself. Regardless of what option you choose, that emotional moment is cut short when Chloe's mom, named Joyce, comes into the house crying with police officers behind her. She had just figured out that Chloe's father, named William, had just died in a tragic car accident. We then see the emotional reactions from Joyce as well as Chloe and Max before we end up cutting to the funeral where Joyce, Chloe, Max, and Max's parents attend. Here, they say their final goodbyes to William, and Max soon walks off screen to get into the car with her parents as they leave Arcadia Bay, the town that they lived in, to go and live in Seattle. Chloe, just coming home from the funeral, slowly makes her way up to her room where she finds a tape recording from her recently departed best friend Max. The message is different depending on if you told her that you were leaving or if you did not, but the sentiment is the same. Max says her final goodbye to Chloe, and an even more emotional Chloe sobs, clutching the tape player to her chest as she just lost both of her favorite people in the span of a few days. In this expansion of the original Life is Strange game, Before the Storm takes place after Max Caulfield leaves Arcadia Bay and completely focuses on Chloe Price. Since Max isn't in Before the Storm at all, I won't talk too much about this story, but I'll mention the main points from this prequel that will connect to events that happen in the original Life is Strange game that we'll mention after this. A lot of this game focuses on how Max leaving has affected Chloe mentally. Max left Chloe when she needed her most, so now Chloe feels that she cannot trust anyone anymore. This has led her to go down a dark path. Firstly, she got herself into drugs, mostly marijuana. She relies on a dealer named Frank Bowers to provide her with weed, who she constantly owes money to. Secondly, she sneaks out often and goes to places like concerts and events she should not be going to. We'll come back to this point later. Lastly, and primarily, she got accepted into Blackwell Academy, a pretty prestigious artsy private school that Chloe got accepted into with the assistance of financial aid. While she was never the top student of her class, she put significantly less thought and effort into her studies after Max left. She even writes in her journal how hurt and betrayed she felt by Max leaving and basically ghosting her. Max did not really contact Chloe that much while she was in Seattle, which made Chloe feel even more alone. That is, until one night when she snuck out to go to this concert that was taking place in this abandoned barn on the outskirts of town. She ended up bumping into this girl, who she recognized from school. Her name was Rachel Amber. Rachel Amber was the polar opposite of Chloe. She had remarkable grades, she was very popular at Blackwell Academy, and was huge into the performing arts. Anyways, Chloe sees her at this concert that seems like kind of the place that Rachel would never be seen at. So, after a chaos-filled night of drinking, jamming along to music, and even escaping from some thugs, Chloe and Rachel bump into each other the next day at school, and Rachel invites Chloe to ditch class and go on a little field trip with her. On this field trip, they hop on a train and try to get to know each other a little bit better. Throughout the rest of this game, they proceed to get closer and closer, and I won't dive too deep into what happens throughout the rest of the game, as there are many plot points in this game that are important for Before the Storm, but don't really connect much to the original Life is Strange game, and by extension, Max Caulfield. So, here are the main important things that you will need to remember for later. Firstly, before bumping into Rachel at school, Chloe meets up with two other kids that she gets along with at Blackwell Academy, named Steph and Mikey. They're the classic D&D nerds at this school. They talk Chloe into playing, and as we will discover later in Life is Strange True Colors, Chloe does end up playing quite a bit with them. Their characters aren't too important for this game's plot, but since they'll be mentioned later, I figured I'd plug them in here. Secondly, after Chloe and Rachel's field trip, they come across an old junkyard. This would eventually become Chloe's safe haven. When her and Rachel get there at first, they have an argument, and Chloe takes her anger out on all the things in the environment of the junkyard. This includes an old camera. This camera represents Max and her love of photography, and Chloe's anger just comes out. Why? Why did Max have to leave at the time that Chloe needed her most? Thankfully, Chloe snaps out of it, her and Rachel reconcile, and that starts a whole plot point about Rachel's dad cheating on her mom, but like I said, we are not going to be diving into that in this video. Lastly, and as I've been building up to, Chloe and Rachel became super tight throughout the events of this game. They were inseparable. Chloe never forgot about Max, but Rachel was there when she needed someone. There are debates about if Rachel was actually a good friend for Chloe, but those debates are irrelevant. Rachel made Chloe happy, and no matter what ending you get in Before the Storm, their story ends happily. Except the very last thing you see before the game ends is Rachel's phone vibrating with the sounds of cameras snapping in the background before cutting to black. The game that started it all, Life is Strange. We're going to be really diving into this one, so buckle in, cause here we go. In this game, we take control of Max Caulfield when, after 5 years, she has returned to Arcadia Bay to go to Blackwell Academy. By the time the game starts, it's already a little bit into the school year, about a month or so, and Max is already pretty settled in. She's made some new friends like Warren Graham and Kate Marsh, and is honestly mostly there because of one of the teachers, Mark Jefferson. Mark Jefferson, who is Max's photography teacher, is a famous, well-known photographer as well as an absolute idol of Max's. Mark Jefferson is most of the reason that Max Caulfield wanted to go to Blackwell Academy to begin with. Anyways, starting with the story, the game opens up with Max in the middle of this wicked storm. She walks through it but eventually wakes up. It was just a dream. She seems to have fallen asleep in a photography class where Mark Jefferson was teaching a lesson. After said lesson, Max goes to the bathroom to unwind a little bit, and she even gets a nice picture of a blue butterfly. This serene moment is cut short when a guy named Nathan Prescott walks into the girls' bathroom. He is talking to himself and seems to be in a really panicked state, as another person, a mysterious blue-haired girl that Max can't really identify, walks into the room and confronts Nathan. Eventually, Nathan shoots and kills her, to which Max reacts and then suddenly ends up back in Mr. Jefferson's lecture. After doing a little messing around in class, Max eventually figures out that she has the ability to rewind time. Knowing what's to come, she gets antsy to get to the bathroom so that she can save the mysterious blue-haired girl. And she does just that. She hears the argument break out and she pulls a fire alarm, which causes the school to evacuate and the girl's life to be saved. As Max is leaving the school, she bumps into the security guard Dave Madsen, who we will come back to later, and Principal Wells, who is obviously the principal at Blackwell Academy. Now here you have a choice. You're able to either tell him about what Nathan has done, or you could say absolutely nothing at all and hide the truth. After this, no matter which option you choose, Nathan will confront Max in the parking lot of the school, and he even attacks her. But then she is rescued by her friend Warren, and then eventually the blue-haired girl shows up, and oh my god, it's Chloe! Bum bum bum! They end up taking Chloe's pickup truck back to Chloe's, and they catch up. Initially, Chloe is very cold towards Max, as she went 5 years without as much as a text from Max. But eventually, Chloe welcomes Max back to Arcadia Bay, and then head into Chloe's house. Max's camera broke in the altercation with Nathan, so she tries to fix it. But when looking at the photos that Max had taken that day, Chloe sees the butterfly picture from the bathroom and realizes that Max must have been there, pulled the alarm, and ultimately saved her life. Chloe becomes grateful and starts to loosen up a bit, even gifting Max a camera that used to belong to her father. But that happy little moment ends when her new-ish stepfather gets home. He immediately starts going at Chloe for her loud music, and then Max can hide in the closet as she sees Chloe's new stepdad enter the room. It's Dave Madsen, the Blackwell Academy security guard that we met earlier. He absolutely rips into Chloe, and Max has the opportunity to take the blame for what Chloe gets in trouble for. And after he's done yelling at her and leaves the room, Max and Chloe decide they need to get out of the house and just get a little bit of space. They end up going to the lighthouse that actually appeared in the dream that Max had earlier, and Chloe tells Max about her relationship with Nathan Prescott and how they know each other. Basically, in a bar one night, Nathan tried to drug Chloe, but before the drug could take full effect, Chloe managed to get away. As Max is absolutely revolted about this story about how Nathan is drugging Chloe, Max has a vision. This vision is the exact same as the dream she had had in Mark Jefferson's class. This is when she realized that this might actually be a warning and tells Chloe about her ability to rewind time. Initially, Chloe doesn't believe her, but then after it starts snowing in 80-degree heat, Chloe starts to take her a little more seriously, and that ends the first episode of the game. Episode 2 focuses a little bit less on Max and Chloe and more about the going-ons at Blackwell Academy. Max knows that Nathan is up to no good, especially after hearing what he did to Chloe. So, the only real bit of Chloe that we get to see is when Max is trying to prove to Chloe that she really has the ability to rewind time by predicting events that happen at the Two Whales Diner, as well as shooting up some bottles at the junkyard that Chloe and Rachel hung out at. It is here also that Chloe opens up a little bit more about Rachel, telling Max how close they were and how she has hope that Rachel is still alive somewhere. The rest of this episode mainly focuses on a character that I haven't really talked too much about yet, Kate Marsh. Kate is a friend that Max has made at Blackwell Academy, but throughout the first 2 episodes, Kate is really going through it. Some video has been spread around campus about Kate where she is at this party, kissing multiple different guys, and just acting completely out of character. This video worked its way around to many people, and now Kate, who is usually pretty happy and full of faith, has become very depressed and is being relentlessly bullied at school. So much so that towards the end of the chapter, she is on the roof of the girls' dorm building and is contemplating jumping to her death, committing suicide. This is a really big emotional moment in this game, particularly for Max, as she knows she has to do something. She's already seen the death of one friend this week, even if she was able to reverse it, and she could not bear to see it happen again to a different friend. Problem being that when Max tries to reverse time, she cannot. She's not able to use her powers here. So Max only has one chance to save her friend. No time traveling can assist Max on this one. While some of the decisions you've made earlier in this game thus far can impact Kate's fate, it is ultimately up to you and the conversation that you have with her up on the roof that can either save Kate or have Kate end her own life. Max uses the knowledge that Nathan is pretty shifty and uses that knowledge of Nathan drugging people to talk Kate out of jumping down, promising Kate that she will get to the bottom of this and figure out what exactly happened to her and why all of this is going on to begin with. And that's what she sets out to do. Episode 3 is all about gathering information, finding the missing pieces, about Rachel Amber and her disappearance, about Nathan Prescott and how he can be involved in things like the disappearance of Rachel Amber and the video being spread around of Kate, and Dave Madsen and his attitude towards Max and Chloe as well as everyone else on campus. This episode starts off with Max and Chloe sneaking into the school at night to gather some information. There are 3 main things that they figured out from this expedition. The first of which is that Nathan accused Rachel of sneaking drugs into this school. Secondly, Nathan and Dave Madsen are apparently working together somehow. And lastly, there's this weird thing that Nathan drew that keeps saying the words Rachel in the dark room. So, with this new information, Max and Chloe leave the school. Well, after taking a little dip into the school's pool and stealthily avoiding the school's guards. Then, they head back to Chloe's place where they decide to do some digging into Dave's personal files. This is actually where Max figures out that he was monitoring all of Rachel Amber, Kate Marsh, and even Max Caulfield's every move, taking details from things they were doing in their everyday lives. Max confronts Dave about this in front of both Chloe and Joyce, saying that he could have helped Kate Marsh, but he was too paranoid watching everyone else and surveilling everyone, including his own family, to be able to help. After that fun, Max and Chloe decide to investigate Frank Bowers a little bit. Right, I haven't really mentioned him in a little bit. Frank Bowers is basically the drug dealer in the town. Chloe owes him quite a bit of money, and earlier in the game we found out that he has a bracelet that initially belonged to Rachel Amber. Naturally, Chloe got really creeped out by the fact that he had this bracelet and wanted to find out more. So they head to the Two Whales Diner where Frank's van is parked, and after getting the keys from him, they sneak into the van and figure out that Rachel actually had a relationship with Frank, even posing in some risque photos for him. This made Chloe furious, and she lashed out, blaming everyone for everything. Chloe felt like everyone was out to make her life shitty, Max included. And after that spat with Chloe, Max goes back to her dorm at Blackwell Academy, and after looking at a picture of her and Chloe from just before the events of the farewell chapter I talked about earlier, she got transported back in time and got to explore the events from around when that photo was taken. Once there, Max makes the ultimate decision to make Chloe suffer less. She changed the past. This change was that she prevented William, Chloe's father, from dying in that car crash. This little change that Max made would affect way more than she would have thought, and episode 3 ends on the twist that saving Chloe's father came at the price of Chloe becoming paralyzed. Episode 4 is a wild chapter that quickly dives into the thick of things. Max finds out from paralyzed Chloe that for her 16th birthday, she got a car from her parents. In this car, she would be in a crash which caused her to sustain life-changing injuries. Eventually, Chloe asks Max to kill her as her injuries are just too much and she can't keep living like this and being such a financial burden on her parents as they've barely been able to afford keeping her alive. Because of this, Max goes back to the past again and makes the tough decision to let William leave and get in that car crash so that Chloe does not have to suffer. Max had to make so many tough choices so far just in this 1 week that no one could even imagine how traumatized she must be from all of this. Once she fixes the timeline, her and Chloe start getting to work on finishing this puzzle. Max and Chloe get information from Frank, steal some stuff from Nathan's dorm room, and use the clues they learned about David to put together a rough estimate on where this dark room is. And they end up finding it, and it's the middle of nowhere, under a barn that belongs to the Prescott family. This dark room is part of what seems to be some sort of fallout shelter, and in it is a cabinet with a bunch of binders, 3 of which stand out, and they are named Victoria, Kate, and Rachel. The Victoria binder is empty, and I should mention that Victoria is a side character in this game who is also a student and is mainly a bully to Max and Kate. She's been in the game since episode 1, but I didn't feel her character significant to bring up until this moment. Then there's the Kate binder, which is filled with photos of Kate from the night that the video was taken of her that nearly drove her to suicide. These photos of Kate are of her clearly in some sort of drugged state being posed, and clearly these pictures were taken without Kate's consent. Then there's the Rachel binder, whose pictures were quite different to Kate's. But one picture shows her laying down in a hole that looks like it's in the junkyard that we know very well. So, there are 2 main things that Max and Chloe learn from these binders. One is that obviously they have to check the junkyard for any evidence of where Rachel is. And 2, that Victoria, given that her binder is empty and right next to Kate's, is probably intended to be the next victim of this drugged up photo op, and Max has to warn her. But first, they head to the junkyard to see if they can find Rachel or any evidence of where she might be. And they do. They go to the junkyard, find the spot from the photo, and they find Rachel's dead body. Chloe has a huge reaction to this, as one of the people she loved the very most is now confirmed dead, and she was right there in the junkyard all along. After they find Rachel's body, they head to the school to warn Victoria about Nathan and his plans to drug her and drag her to the dark room, and subsequently, Max and Chloe have to then find Nathan Prescott. There's this huge party from the Vortex Club, which is basically this elitist school club where basically everyone was attending this party. And after bumping into Warren and getting a seemingly unimportant selfie that we will have to remember for later, they look for Nathan at this party to no avail. And after warning Victoria about Nathan, they leave. As they're leaving, Chloe gets a text from Nathan Prescott, basically saying that he's about to destroy the evidence of Rachel at the junkyard that he knows that Max and Chloe found. So they rush to get there to see that the body actually has not been touched. And as Chloe is distracted looking at Rachel, all confused as to why nothing's been changed or destroyed yet, Max gets injected by a syringe and is unable to rewind time to save herself. And she struggles to warn Chloe about the upcoming threat, but by the time that Chloe sees Nathan, it's too late. He shoots her dead. Except there's one minor thing about this. It actually wasn't Nathan Prescott that shot her, and it wasn't even Nathan Prescott that drugged Max. It was actually none other than Mark Jefferson, the person that Max looked up to at Blackwell Academy the most, that was the one to kill Chloe and drug Max. Then it cuts to black. Episode 5 takes a seriously dark turn. Max wakes up strapped to a chair, and depending on the certain choices that you make in this game, Victoria could be next to you on the floor. While looking around the room and trying to figure out a way to escape, Max finds pictures taken of her and uses them to go back in time to when Mark Jefferson was taking those photos of her. Here, Mark Jefferson basically monologued about how he got away with what he did and basically filled in some holes that many people might have had questions about. He talked about how he was using Nathan to get students like Rachel and Kate to come to him. He talked about how Rachel died because Nathan wanted to be just like Mark Jefferson and accidentally overdosed Rachel on that drug and killed her. And he also explained how he killed Nathan as a result of his mess up with Rachel. Mark Jefferson says a lot, and after hearing all of this, Max tries to change time again, this time getting Mark Jefferson arrested before he can do anything with her. When she does this, this changes the whole timeline. It prevents Kate's suicide attempt, has Rachel's body found earlier, and has Max win a photography contest where she gets to see her work displayed in a museum in San Francisco. Except this change makes things worse. That storm that Max saw in the vision back in the beginning of the game is real, and it is going to destroy Arcadia Bay while she is away in San Francisco. So she uses her photo that's in the museum to go back in time to prevent her from going to San Francisco so that she could stay in Arcadia Bay and save Chloe. Except this sends her back to the dark room. Her diary with lots of her photos got burned and contributed to why Mark Jefferson wasn't arrested, so only part of what she adjusted actually came true. However, she does get saved by none other than Dave Madsen. He comes in and Max, using her abilities to rewind time, has to help Dave stop Mark Jefferson from killing Dave. If she does that, because of the fact that her photos are burned, she realizes that she has to go back out into the storm because that seemingly unimportant selfie that Warren took earlier just became the most important selfie ever. She needs to use that picture to go back in time to stop Chloe from going into the school and causing the events that unfold where Chloe ends up dying because of Mark Jefferson shooting her. If you do this, you can get Jefferson arrested right away and settle things with him, but that's not the end of the story. While Mark Jefferson is now arrested, behind bars, all of that jazz, the storm is very much still present, and it is way too strong. So, after Max collapses and is put through absolute hell, having to fight through basically her own mind in a nightmare that she feels like she cannot escape, she comes to and sees Chloe again, and they realize the reason the storm is happening is because of one choice, one bit of time that they had changed. That moment being when Max saved Chloe's life in the bathroom all the way back in the beginning of the game. So, Max is now faced with the biggest choice of all. Max can either save Chloe, but that would include destroying Arcadia Bay, including Warren, Joyce, and anyone else who is still in town, or Max can save the town, but that would mean going back in time one last time and letting Chloe die, getting shot in the bathroom by Nathan Prescott. The choice is yours, and whichever ending you choose, Max will have to live with the consequences of that choice for the rest of her life. In Life is Strange 2, this is the first game to not take place in Arcadia Bay. This is a completely new story in a completely new setting with completely new protagonists named Sean and Daniel. I'm not going to dive into the story here, as none of it really correlates with Max, but there are two main points from this game that do reference Max and the events of Life is Strange 1 that I do want to mention. Firstly, Sean and Daniel are on the run, and they come across Arcadia Bay. The ending you choose in the first game will dictate what Sean and Daniel see. They will either see the town in all its glory, representing the sacrificing Chloe ending, or they will see the town completely destroyed, representing the sacrificing Arcadia Bay ending. Secondly, and more notably, towards the end of the game they come across an old soldier in a camp in the middle of the desert. And it's Dave Madsen. He never goes away. But he is a completely changed man, being completely traumatized from the events of the first game, no matter which ending you choose. If Chloe is sacrificed in the first game, then Dave shows remorse for not making amends with his stepdaughter and ends up getting divorced by Joyce and moving out to the middle of nowhere. If Arcadia Bay is sacrificed, then Dave is now a widow, as Joyce was killed because of the storm. But the one good thing that does come from this is that he and Chloe do make amends and are actually pretty close now. Close enough to where Chloe and Max have even stayed with Dave at this camp for a while, and Chloe even calls Dave now to fill him in every now and again on things going on. This actually does happen in the middle of this game, where if we listen into the phone call that Dave is having with Chloe, her and Max are currently traveling together and are in New York. The reason they're in New York is because Max is here for something related to her photography, and she's talking to some gallery in New York. Either way, this particular point in Life is Strange 2 takes place about 4 years after the events of the first game. Like I said, because Life is Strange 2 isn't really about Max, there isn't much to report here about her. But we do at least know that if Chloe is saved, that they are still together, at least by this point, adventuring and living life to the fullest like they always wanted. Life is Strange True Colors barely adds anything to Max's story, so there's even less to report on here than from Life is Strange 2. But we do get to reconnect with an old character in this game, Steph Gingrich. She was the D&D loving girl from before the storm, and now she is a main character in this game, albeit not playable. She has her own dedicated DLC called Wavelengths, where she is playable. In Wavelengths, we see her and Mikey, her friend from before the storm, as they catch up, and Steph has a lot of flashbacks to when her, Mikey, Chloe, and Rachel all hung out at school. We also see the effects of the endings of the original Life is Strange game and what they do to her, whether Chloe dies or Arcadia Bay gets destroyed. Steph is having a hard time getting over this grief even all these years later. Wavelengths takes place about 5 to 6 years after the events of Life is Strange 1, so knowing that Steph was fighting with this trauma all those years later can make me only imagine what Max Caulfield is going through. That brings us to the present with Life is Strange Double Exposure. This game takes place 10 years after the events of Life is Strange 1, and many fans have a lot of questions about the story of this game. At the moment, we only have confirmation of Max Caulfield returning. No hints at Chloe Price returning, or basically anyone from any of the previous Life is Strange games. But honestly, I wouldn't count out certain characters from returning in this game. I'm assuming at the beginning of the game will ask you about the ending that you chose in Life is Strange 1. And obviously that will have an effect on how the story plays out. Like, if you sacrifice Arcadia Bay instead of Chloe, Chloe might be able to make a cameo appearance. I don't think she's going to be a prevalent part of the game, but I do think it's possible that she could show up for a little bit. But alternatively, if you sacrifice Chloe instead of Arcadia Bay, then she won't appear in your playthrough at all, and is spoken through the past tense. Then there are some characters that have the potential to die in Life is Strange 1 that don't really rely on the ending choice. Kate Marsh committing suicide, Mark Jefferson dying to Dave Madsen, Victoria Chase being killed by Mark Jefferson, etc. I think because those deaths aren't tied to the endings and are more specific to your playthrough and other choices that you made, I think it is highly unlikely that any of these characters will show up beyond anything more than a mention. Many fans are speculating about Rachel Amber returning, and I think that is highly unlikely, given that Rachel is dead no matter what in the original Life is Strange, and it would be very weird for them to kinda undo that fate. The only exception to all this, of course, is that since Max's powers deal with time and shifting realities, there could be some weird alternate universe stuff thrown in, or even a flashback to Arcadia Bay that could potentially bring back some of the older characters in that sense. But enough about the past. What do we know about this game's story in the present? Well, we do know that Max is at Caulfield University in the middle of the Northeast as a photographer in residence. She's really made two new good friends, being Safi and Moses, and she seems mostly past the trauma of the events from the first game. That is, until Safi is murdered on campus. Max, desperate to save Safi, tries to use her rewind power from the original game, but it's gone now. She's unable to use it. But later on, she does figure out how her powers have evolved. She can now travel between two separate realities. The one that she was in where Safi died, and another one where Safi is alive but very much still in danger. Between the two realities, Max's relationships with people are also very different, and there are puzzles in the game that will require you to shift between these realities to solve them. Other than that, there's not much known about this game's story. I think what they're going to do with this game's story personally is that most of the story is going to be focused on Max's new life at Caulfield University. But her past traumas will be very prevalent, and there will be a lot of nods to the events that took place in Arcadia Bay. But given that the game is coming out in a little bit more than 2 months, we're going to have to wait until then until we can get our grubby little hands on the game and find out for ourselves. So there you have it, guys. That is the story of Max Caulfield throughout the Life is Strange games. Like I said, Double Exposure is coming out in just a few months, so make sure to pick it up on all platforms. If you're excited about it, the Nintendo Switch version of Double Exposure will be coming out later than like the Xbox and PlayStation versions, but if you are a Nintendo gamer, don't worry, Life is Strange Double Exposure will be coming out on the Nintendo Switch as well. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I really hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, all that stuff down below, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when I upload videos. And until next time, you guys, I will see you all in the next video.